This guy is sick. There's something wrong with this guy.
Well, if you mean Jeremy Corbyn, yeah, you're probably right. Jeremy Corbyn wants to wipe out student loans, and it would cost £10 billion a year. You could buy a nuclear weapon for that, Jezza. Where's your sense of priorities? Here's the news that is going to affect you. It's dark. That's the weather. Dark. Dark outside. The Met Office is forecasting the country is going to face its first widespread... Get Spooner on the phone and he'll explain this to us. Dr. Spooner. This country is about to face its worst widespread frost this season as weekend temperatures fall to as low as -4.
Oh, no.
-4. This is going to be a marked change to earlier this month when it was sunbathing weather. We had our second warmest October day in the past 6 years when the temperatures hit 74 degrees Fahrenheit on October the 16th. Ah, it's been beautiful. And it's all thanks to global warming.
Thank you.
There's going to be a cold start for the north half of the UK tomorrow, but then you would expect that. That's why it's cheaper to live there. The high pressure, I don't know whether you can feel it, but I'm under a tremendous amount of pressure, and so are you. There's high pressure, which will lead to a largely dry and settled day with spells of sunshine. What a concept. Winds will be mostly light. And it will still be raining in Glasgow. And I can say that without even looking it up. I bet it's going to be raining in Glasgow. One moment, please. I will check that as you wait. There's an app for it. Yep. Yep. Yep, it's going to be raining. It'll be raining tomorrow, and you get Sunday no rain. Monday raining, Tuesday raining, Wednesday raining. I'm not making this up. Thursday no rain so far, and raining on Friday, and for the rest of your lives. It's a lovely town, and I like it a lot. Can't stand the weather. Sunday is going to be cooler here, there and everywhere, baby. There'll be brisk northerly airflow. Top temperatures reaching 14 centigrade, which you double and add 32 to get Fahrenheit. So double 14 is 34. And 34 and 32 is 68. Hey, that sounds quite pleasant. 68 degrees. Can you believe that?
No.
It's not only going to be colder, though, but the clocks are also going to be going back this weekend. Yeah, it's come around too soon. The clocks will be going, and we have this same conversation twice a year, every year, without fail. And the entire country is going to be plunged into darkness just so that 6 dairy farmers in Scotland don't have to fumble in the dark for some ungulate's teat. Cows don't know what time it is. They don't care. Cows don't wear watches. Why do we have to go through this every year? Painful. It's excruciating. So, did I tell you, or did I tell you? Female staff at Westminster are naming MPs who have sexually abused them in one way or another on WhatsApp, which is probably, I don't know, these days, is that an appropriate method for communicating this sort of thing? It is end-to-end encrypted, so perhaps it's the safest way of doing it. Not even MI5 or MI6 would be able to infiltrate it, apparently. Cabinet members are believed to be among a list of politicians branded not safe in taxis and lift. Right, so call us now, and which cabinet member do you think is not safe? No, okay, we won't be doing that. I've just been informed that we will not be doing that, not me making a list. These people have been described as very handsy by aides and researchers. Did I tell you?
Yes.
Over and over and over again I've been saying this. I've been saying this exact thing, but with a slight twist. A source claimed that the scandal could see MPs and other parliamentary personnel outed by the weekend, and that resignations are anticipated as a result. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if the whole place was cleared out. And you could say the exact same thing for bars and clubs and factories and TV stations and architects' offices and lawyers and everywhere that people gather. I've met people and I'm not that keen. And the scale of this misbehaviour or abuse or attacking, whatever it might be, is so huge that nothing will be done, except for a few people are going to be gotten rid of for the sake of convenience or payback or vengeance. Whoever is named in the coming days, if anyone at all, just remember it's the tip of the iceberg. It's everywhere. It's not just Harvey Weinstein, and it ain't just Hollywood. And I have been saying this ever since I went to the Palace of Westminster. I went one evening for a function. To this day, I still don't really know what it was or why I was there. But I got a pen and free booze. Not a lot, and it wasn't that great, but the view was nice. It was out on the terrace, the Palace of Westminster. And the things that I saw in there, I've been telling you. There ain't no such thing as security, or at least there wasn't then, at the Palace of Westminster. Anybody could have just waltzed in. I did. Nobody checked who I was. Nobody checked where I was going. Nobody checked my reason for being there. I just showed up and walked through, and I was in. It was just, I couldn't believe it. I didn't have I expected some sort of gilt-edged, words just dropped out my mind. Invitation is the right word.
Affirmative.
Invitation. I expected some sort of a stiff card to come through the post, but there was nothing. So armed with nothing at all, when the evening came around, I thought, well, I'll just better print out the email, because they're bound to want to know who I am and where I'm going. But they didn't. I just joined a queue of other people who were shiftily waiting to gain entrance, and I just walked in. I mean, you do go through, or did, this is a couple of years ago now, some sort of airport-style security, so you couldn't actually walk through with a rocket launcher on your shoulder. But other than that, I was amazed at how lax it was. And once you're in there, you can just wander about. Or, as was the case as the evening wore on, reel about. The drunken carousing that was going on in there was eye-opening. It was just as bad as I had expected, with the unexpected extra added smell of boiled cabbage, which permeated the entire place. It was like an OAP's home. It was like, have you ever been to one of those big grand hotels in Yorkshire? A faded seaside resort that, used to be something in the Victorian era. You wonder at the architecture on the outside, and then you walk in, and the overpowering stench of boiled cabbage is enough to float you right back out the place. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. So the scale of this is immense. I can't believe that it's got this long to be unprized, to pop the lid off this. And it's all thanks to Harvey Weinstein. And they haven't even got... the thing that I've... other than what appeared to me to be lax security, I've been saying this over and over again about... it looked like a gay knocking shop. It looked like the Houses of Parliament looked to me, the Palace of Westminster looked like a facility for old gay men to avail themselves of the charms of young, floppy-haired public school boys. That's what it looked like to me. They were everywhere. I've never seen such drunkenness since I was at university. Falling about the place they were, reeling, staggering, unable to walk in a straight line. Holding each other up they were. It did look like a geriatric pickup joint for old men to get youths drunk and to sway off with them into the night. I just couldn't believe how blatant it was. So just remember, whatever comes out of this, it's just scraping the surface. The PM had her spokesperson come out, and she said that any ministers found to have behaved inappropriately would face serious action. Yeah, right. No, they won't. I guess it will depend on who they are and how they vote. I mean, if the government spends £1 billion on getting some DUPists to vote their way, and they would have voted their way anyway, just imagine what sins they might overlook to maintain their majority. Am I the only person that occurs to? The Daily Mail said the Palace of Westminster was rocked by claims that MPs have sexually harassed their colleagues. No, they're not. They might be a little nervous that people are talking about it now, but they certainly won't be surprised. Who are they kidding? And neither is the Daily Mail surprised. See, what's funny about this kind of thing is, well, funny is perhaps the wrong word. What's bizarre about this is that the newspapers know all this. The newspapers have massive files on everybody that you have ever heard of. Every celebrity, every MP, anybody that's in the public eye. And some people they will monster. And others they'll completely leave alone. It's almost an unwritten, well, it probably is an unwritten rule. Maybe it's a rule that they've written down. Some celebrities are untouchable. And others, they will leap about on with glee at the earliest opportunity. Same with MPs. And that people in Hollywood, for instance, are just aghast. They're just stunned at these Harvey Weinstein revelations. Oh, please. If you occupy a position in Hollywood, if you were floating about in that orbit, you know exactly what's going on. It ain't just Harvey Weinstein either. And if you are a political reporter in the Palace of Westminster, then you've been there when the MPs have been all of a fumble in the evening. Unless you knock off sharpish at 5 and never go there for a freebie at night, which is just not believable. So journalists know exactly what's happening, MPs know exactly what's happening, actors and actresses and producers and directors and all of the rest of them know what's happening. That we don't, of course, because we're not part of that gilded elite. Oh, I can only dream of being part of the gilded elite. They weren't rocked. The Palace of Westminster was rocked. Oh, come off it. Reeled, yes. Rocked, no. They might be horrified that somebody is finally speaking up, and they might be trying to remember what they did and to whom when they were away at conference or off their heads after a subsidised evening of drinking, but they weren't surprised. Come off it. And a member of this group that's talking about this on the WhatsApp app, which I hate, by the way. It's have you used it? It's the stupidest app in the world. It tries to predict the words that you're scrolling away on your screen, and it always gets them fantastically wrong. Unless it's just my phone. My phone is an idiot. It's supposed to be a smartphone. I'm smarter than my phone. What's the use in that? But anyway, a member of this WhatsApp group told The Sun the usual old suspects are there, but there have been some surprising younger names crop up. But it's not surprising at all. Young or old, people have always used their power to get sex, and people have always used their sex to get power.
Disgusting.
Which is one of the things that Martin Clunes was saying, that there are actually two sides to this. And Martin Clunes was right about that. It seems odd that he would have said anything at all about this because of the predictable howls of outrage, but women and men have always used their attractiveness to get what they want. And women and men have always used their power to get sex. It's people. There's predators on both sides. But to be clear, only the sex predators are guilty of a crime. The power predators, using sex as a weapon to get what they want, are just guilty of manipulation. Big difference, huge.
Hello, boys.
So Martin Clunes waded into this Harvey Weinstein scandal. I'm just because I know what the reaction is going to be, I'm kind of surprised that he did it. He accused some actresses of openly flirting with producers. Well, of course. According to The Sun, the 55-year-old Mr. Clunes told the audience some of the... he was addressing an audience, I can't remember who it was, but it doesn't really matter. He says some of these actresses, there are draped over him in a club, as in Harvey Weinstein. Well, it would take a lot of actresses to drape over and completely cover Harvey Weinstein. I mean, I'm not saying he's fat, but... Okay, I'm saying he's fat. He said, if I did that to them, I'd be, I don't know, it's not news that these predators allowed some people to, I don't know. Huh. You know, when actors aren't reading off script, maybe they're not as fluent with the language as you might expect. If I did that to them, I'd be, I don't know, it's not news that these predators allowed some people to, I don't know. He could be the President of the United States with that kind of diction. He says, of course it's absolutely ghastly, it's a form of prostitution, it's the oldest game in the book. And I suppose that's right, but it's different. I don't think he's drawing an equivalency. He's just making out the point that young people of both sexes do throw themselves at people in power in order to get ahead. I mean, I didn't get here by talent. Fortunately, I'm enormously attractive. Over 40 actresses and models. I mean, I read maybe over 50. Doesn't really make any difference at this point. 40 or more have come forward claiming that Harvey Weinstein, who they're calling a Hollywood heavyweight, as in fat, sexually assaulted or harassed them over the past decades, including some claiming that he raped them, which he denies, and he has completed a whole week's rehab stay for sexual addiction and declared himself cured. He went to rehab for 1 week for sexual addiction and has declared himself cured. So, that's the end of that then. There's no such thing as sexual addiction, just like there's no such thing as being addicted to cake. You might be socially addictive. You might put yourself in a position where you find it habit-forming, but it's not actually addictive. Come off it. Look at that switchboard. Holy moly. Is anybody remotely interested in sex? I can't believe it. Not interested in Harvey Weinstein or Martin Clunes. I've got no opinion on that in any shape or form, and no opinion on the so-called sex scandal that's rumbling in the Palace of Westminster. I find that interesting. I'll note that down. I'll tell Lucy tomorrow there is no interest in sex on this station. By the way, Harvey Weinstein is may be stripped of his honorary CBE. A formal investigation has begun. The Honours Forfeiture Committee is understood to have been looking at the case after receiving an complaint. A decision could be made within weeks. Isn't it exciting? A Whitehall source told the Sun newspaper that removing the CBE was under active consideration. What a country. I mean, honestly, sometimes I'm just open-mouthed in amazement. A Cabinet Office spokesman said, forfeiture action is confidential and we cannot comment on whether or not specific cases are being considered by the committee. He was awarded the honour for outstanding contribution to the British film industry in 2004. Oh, he had a hand in the British film industry. Is it just me, or does it seem likely that if you are stripped if you strip the honours from everyone who has acted outside what any normal person would regard as reasonable behaviour, there would be enough honoured people left to fill a phone box? Is it just me? Often it looks to me like the bigger the honour, the bigger the crook. Maybe I'm alone in that. Not necessarily in this case, though, because I'm sure that Harvey Weinstein is innocent until proven guilty. Until proven guilty. Innocent. Up until that point. Boy, I really thought that people would be freaking out about Martin Clunes' interjection into this issue, but apparently that nobody has a single solitary opinion about it. It's just me. Righto. Nor does anybody have an opinion about the rumbling sex scandals in the Palace of Westminster, or perhaps where they work, or has no interest in sex of any kind whatsoever. I'm stunned. Okay, then. Brexit. Let's go to Brexit. Oh, no. You're forcing me to do it. So Boris has stuck his oar in. He has gone to Portugal, apparently our oldest ally, to help break the Brexit logjam. We're so desperate in this country now that we are we're asking Portugal for help. Boris Johnson appealed to Britain's oldest ally, Portugal, to help break the Brexit deadlock. Boris Johnson is appealing. That is the first time that sentence has ever been uttered in the English language. The Foreign Secretary Bozo of the FO travelled to Lisbon to urge the Portuguese to come to the UK's aid in these stalled negotiations. But he couldn't just ask like a normal person. He had to make sure that everyone knew he had an expensive education by evoking a 700-year-old treaty and the Duke of Wellington's role in chasing Napoleon's troops out of Portugal. He couldn't just ask for help. He had to say, in the Treaty of Windsor, if you read it very carefully, somewhere I'm sure there is a clause that says, if one side is involved in some very different or difficult European negotiations, it's the duty of one side to come to the aid of the other. In English, that makes little sense. Can you imagine what the Portuguese must have thought? He also heaped praise on the wonderful contribution to our lives, culture and economy made by Portuguese residents living in Britain. I bet he has got absolutely no clue what contribution to our lives, culture and economy are made by the Portuguese residents living in Britain. I would double dare you, Boris, to name one thing that comes immediately to mind. The Foreign Secretary said, well, I'll get to that in just a minute. Oh, there's plenty to talk about with the EU. It just keeps getting, well, worse or better, depending on your opinion. Certainly it gets more amusing.
What we got here is a failure to communicate.
This tweet says, from a bloke called Andrew, he says, well, you can't say that these days, can you? A person of indeterminate sex called Andrew, he says, he, she, it says, sex. He says it's odd. He, she, it says it's odd to me why it has taken so long for the Harvey Weinstein story to come out. Could it be because he is not at his money-making Hollywood peak as he was in the late 90s? Nick, it's all about the money. It's all about the money, honey. And I thought, well, I'm going to check on that. My first thought was, no, that can't be it. And then I thought, well, why don't I dial up his producing credits and see how he's been doing lately. And since 2015, he's been a producer or executive producer on the following films: Jane Got a Gun, Sing Street, Dr. Thorne, Project Runway, a TV show about which I know nothing, Hands of Stone, Messiah, Friday Night, Viral, Wild Oats, Lion. I mean, maybe he's right. I've hardly heard of any of these films. No hits. The Current War, The Upside, Spy Kids, Mission Critical. Maybe that's it. Maybe he ain't making the money anymore. Huh. They've jettisoned him. Because if it's him, then I would assume that, with one or two exceptions, it's going to be everybody. It's not... And it's not really men, and it's not men in positions of great power in the entertainment industry. It's just people. Langley, Dion.
Yeah, good evening, Nick.
Oh, good evening, Dion.
Yeah, you're a bit more lively. I've been sleeping all day.
You've been sleeping all day?
Yeah, I had a day off, so I took advantage of it and went to sleep all day.
Right, well, maybe you're sleep deprived.
Not necessarily, no.
Well, I think so, yeah. I mean, speaking as a medical professional...
yeah, right. No, it was just nice. I just had a nice... Apart from next door's doing DIY and using a hammer, it was all right.
Well, you know what? DIY is the only part of our economy that is actually showing growth. It's true. Everything else is collapsing. DIY is about the only part of the retail economy that is on the up.
Probably keeps the NHS busy as well.
That would be that was going to be my point later on. You just ruined it for me. Thanks a lot, mate.
All right then. Yes, I was listening to something, I think it was on the radio through the week, about these dating sites.
Yeah.
You know, the apps you get on your phone and that.
I've heard of them. I haven't got one.
Yeah, I haven't got one myself. But no, they were saying why can't people do it like we did when we were younger? I'm in my late 50s now. You know, you go to the pub or a bar or a club.
Yeah, and pass out by 9:30.
Yeah, and you'd ask, you know, my case, a lady, do you like a drink? Would you do this? Yeah. But it seems these days, if you do that, you're some deviant or something because you're trying to chat someone up. But
well, it depends how you do it, Dion.
Well, you do it nicely, don't you?
It does seem somewhat old-fashioned and a little bit sad in that regard, that people are meeting each other based exclusively on the way they look, on a selfie snap,
or the profile you give. You know, you could be a millionaire film producer.
Yeah, if they put that in their profile, they almost certainly are driving an Uber.
Yeah, there you go. But it's, you know, I mean, it's just these days. I mean, it's, you know, to me, if it's going to happen, if you sort of start a relationship, it's going to happen when you bump into someone, and it's just how it was when I was a bit younger.
Yeah, but, you know, clubs are closing all over the country, and pubs are closing. They used to be closing at the rate of about 10 a week, and it's because people aren't going out, and the kids aren't going out doing the disco dancing anymore. They're just not remotely interested because they can skip an evening of paying £5 for a pint and getting absolutely legless and staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning in the desperate hope that they're going to score. They can cut all that out. And just
well, it's funny, I've had my nephew staying for a few days, and he has a girlfriend round, a couple of mates and that. And like you said, they're not bothered about going clubbing.
No.
It's all the aggro, the prices.
The price, yeah.
And then getting back again in a cab.
Yeah, then the lost sleep and the feeling rough the next morning, and still not scoring.
And that's it, where they could. They can have a drink indoors, have their friends round, bit of music.
And then charge up their apps.
And that's it. Yeah.
It seems a bit mechanical and a bit unromantic to me. But then I suppose if you introduced yourself to somebody in a bar, as you said that you have done, Dion, then you will have initially been attracted to them because of their looks. So really, what's the difference?
Yeah, but it's all the dating thing, what they were talking about.
You might actually have a chat and introduce yourself and try to remember her name first, rather than just get straight to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just seems everything seems to be done with your face stuck in a phone these days.
I had no idea where you were going with that sentence. I'm glad it ended the way it did. Phew.
Yeah. That's why I've got a beard.
I was on the edge of my seat there, Dion.
Don't worry, I'm not like that.
All right. Yeah. Okay, good work. Thanks a lot, mate. Leeds. Danny.
Good evening, Nick.
Danny.
Hi. I worked in the film industry, and I was working on a movie, and one of the main men had a caravan because it was a low budget, so he didn't have a Winnebago. And every lunchtime he used to rock.
Was he rocking with different people, or?
Yes,
right.
Different girlies.
Right. And in what capacity were you working in the film business?
I was the continuity lady on it.
Right. So you were the person that was in charge of making sure that a cigarette didn't get smoked all the way down from 1 second to the next.
Exactly.
Right.
But you know, with all this scandal going on, does that mean Christmas parties are going to be off this year, Nick?
Well, I think Christmas parties are...
when it all happens at office Christmas parties.
Nobody should ever get drunk or even have a drink at a Christmas party. My advice would be to show up, make your presence known, and then duck out as soon as possible before it gets ugly and people's phones start coming out and the recriminations start the very next day.
And do you avoid the mistletoe?
You know what? There's a tree in my garden that grows a massive amount of mistletoe, and every year I think I must shin up that tree and try and take it down, because it's expensive stuff, isn't it? I could sell it to
you could make a fortune.
Exactly. I could be a millionaire, Danny, by this time next year. Yeah. And so, do you think that this person in the rocking caravan was abusing their position, or were they availing themselves of people who were trying to get up the ladder?
Yes.
Who were offering themselves, in other words?
Offering themselves.
Is that the way it seemed?
They were like groupies, like you had,
right.
Rock bands, the girlies that followed them around.
Yeah.
And so you'd get various girlies that used to follow various artists around, and they would make themselves available.
Right. Because why wouldn't you?
Exactly. You might become a starlet one day.
And in that scenario, who's abusing who?
Precisely.
Are you saying precisely?
Precisely, yes.
Precisely. Is that a Leeds thing?
Yes.
Is it? Hey, have they sold any of those flats? They were. Last time I was in Leeds, I spent 6 months in Leeds. I liked it a lot. And,
it's a lovely place.
Yeah, and they were building a massive amount of tiny executive flatlets around the Armoury, just by the foaming river there, which I assume still foams from the. I think it's the beer, isn't it?
No, the beer. Tetley's Brewery's gone.
That's it.
It's closed down. You should come and see it. It's all being redeveloped, and it's first-class apartments.
Well, yeah, like Leeds needs any more first-class executive flats. I'm just wondering whether they actually sold them all.
Yeah.
Really?
And the river's all been cleaned up.
Huh.
Oh, it's thriving, and buzzing is Leeds.
Well, then...
that's rocking as well.
I'll put it on my list. All right, thanks a lot, Danny.
Thank you.
Lancashire, Annie.
Oh, hi, Nick.
Hey up, Chuck.
Hiya. Yeah, it was interesting, what you're saying about all this stuff on WhatsApp that women have been discussing about MPs. And I just wonder if anything's actually going to come out about that, because I think one of the reasons women don't often speak out about it is because they are actually afraid of losing their jobs, or of being seen as troublemakers. That often happens, if women actually complain about it. So it will be interesting to see, especially if these are people like cabinet ministers, if anybody actually does, feel able to sort of come out and say anything. And I'm wondering as well if they do, because Jeremy Corbyn was saying, wasn't he, to anybody, that felt that and there had been abuse should go to the authorities at Westminster about it.
I think that if any... I'm just working from a position of massive ignorance on this and every other subject, come to that. But it does occur to me that if every single person that was guilty of abusing their position in order to attract sexual favours was investigated by the law, who occupies the Palace of Westminster, then this is a story that could run from now until the end of time. I'd be quite surprised if there was more than a handful of people that hadn't done that.
Yeah, I can quite agree with you, because I think it's rife everywhere.
That's the thing.
Westminster and
it's everywhere. It'll be in a fish packing factory, and it'll be in a lawyer's office, and it'll be in on the buses, and just everywhere.
Oh yeah, because over the last few weeks since all this Harvey Weinstein thing, I've heard women, just loads of women in different occupations talking about it, including a barrister actually, was saying when she was younger, definitely being sexually harassed and touched when she didn't want to be, and etc., by a much more powerful colleague. And women do feel that that they are going to put their careers in jeopardy, and it's just really difficult if you're in a very powerless position and that person is in a much more powerful position than you. I don't know,
and I know it is more likely that women would be the victims of this, but let's not forget that it is also true that men can be the victims of women, but also men.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. as far as sex crimes are concerned, 98% are committed by men, but I'm not saying they never happen by women, and quite often men, for other young men. I'm sure a lot of that goes on at Westminster, especially all those public school educated boarding school boys who are a bit used to jumping in and out of each other's beds.
Well,
probably quite a bit on the side from the wife,
Well,
with the young men.
I'm not sure that that's a particular feature of public schools, but anyway, I don't think the amount of money that your parents have bearing on your eventual sexuality, but okay.
No, but I think some people are bisexual, aren't they? And so, yes, I definitely... I just mean single-sex schools generally. I mean, I went to a single-sex boarding school, actually, and, there was a little bit of that going on, I have to say, with the older girls, because I was actually quite young when I went. But,
well, if you're gonna lock children up together you're gonna wrench them from the home and put them in the surroundings of some prison, it kind of looks like to me. You're going to get all sorts of behaviour going on. I wouldn't recommend that personally, unless some people have a tremendous time being boarders. I mean, half the children in the world want to have gone to Harry Potter's school, for instance.
Well, I don't think they should have gone to mine. Recommended it. Anyway, no, I do think boarding schools quite like cruelty to children, really. I'm sure parents don't mean it to be. My parents thought they were doing the best thing for me, but I absolutely hated it.
I'm sure there's a lot of parents who just want to get them out of the house.
Yes, that too. Yeah. So, but as far as Westminster is concerned, I do think it will be really interesting to see if anything comes of this, if any names actually come out, and if any women do feel, or men, young men for that matter, do feel that they can speak out, and without feeling that they are going to risk their careers. This is obviously why they're all doing it on WhatsApp, isn't it? If it's encrypted.
Yeah.
And I wonder as well if something did come out, if they might get covered up as well.
I think
cabinet minister.
I'd be very surprised if it didn't happen that way. And I also think that the press aren't waiting on the edge of their seats to learn these names. They know them already. It's just that they have decided, by what method I don't know, that some people get monstered all over their pages 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and others never get mentioned at all until. Quite often, it appears recently, until they're safely dead. I mean, the press didn't know about Jimmy Savile. I mean, come off it. They're the press. That stuff is what they do for a living. How could they not have known?
I think a lot of people in the BBC actually knew, didn't they, and turned a blind eye to it.
Yeah, but the people that are accusing the BBC are the investigative reporters from a newspaper business. That they are claiming complete ignorance of this matter is just not believable.
No, I'm sure they knew as well.
I mean, I knew, but I didn't know that I knew, because even before I got into radio, this was in 1980-something, somebody who is still in radio, and some other fellow that went off to become an international superstar, they used to do a tape of like radio spoofs. And on one of the tapes that... I mean, I wasn't in radio at the time. I was trying to get into it, or I think I was actually working in a pub. But I managed to get hold of a copy of this thing, and it was very funny. And one of the skits was about Jimmy Savile, and at the end of it, I can't remember exactly how it went, but it was something of the order of, somebody's going to be winning a trip over to my place, and I hope it's a little girl. And it didn't really occur to me at the time. I had no idea, and I didn't really pay it much attention. But had I known then what I know now, then I would have been even more certain that I don't know whether you can even call it a cover-up. It's just a desire that some people are like cannon fodder for the press, and others will be protected. And it was just one of those that the press had decided, we'll just, we'll say nothing.
Yeah, I think if people are very popular as well, and also with MPs and things, certain papers who are, say, right-wing papers will definitely not sort of say anything about right-wing politicians, will they? And imagine it might be a bit the opposite way, although most of them are right-wing. But you know what I mean? I think if they're mates with them and, you know, they go for lunches with them and they know them, they interview them and stuff.
Well, I believe that's true. Also now, of course, with such a thin majority, if people start getting kicked out left, right and centre, then the Brexit is going to be even more chaotic than it is at the moment.
Yes, there might be no cabinet left.
Exactly.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
There won't be anybody to vote on that meaningful vote about Brexit.
Yeah.
Whatever that actually turns out to be.
Oh, God knows. I think the thing in the past, though, thinking about it, is that all this kind of thing used to just be much more tolerated than it is now. I mean, and sexual abuse generally, but sexual abuse of children as well.
Well, I was thinking about this during the break. You know, the one thing that people have mentioned, but has never really been investigated much, and people joke about it, is rock. I mean, somebody when I was speaking to a little while ago mentioned groupies. You know, in the 1970s, and of course it hasn't stopped. If it was going on in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, then it's certainly going on now. But young girls followed rock bands around and literally or figuratively threw themselves at them, and it was accepted to the point that huge rock bands would release albums with naked underage girls on the cover. I can think of two of the biggest selling albums of all time who have got just that.
Yeah,
and they got songs on the insides of, you know, as part of their canon about underage groupies, and so there's some huge household names, world stars, who are probably quaking just a little bit at the very thought of all this Harvey Weinstein stuff, because it's him what's sort of opened this can of worms.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can think of one. It was that Blind Faith album. Is that the one you were thinking of?
Yeah, and well, there's the Led Zeppelin album, and probably a lot of others that I can't think of right now.
Yeah. So it was just much more accepted in those days, but nowadays people, you know, quite rightly think this is totally unacceptable.
I mean, I think that I've mentioned before is the Sweeney. It's a program about the police, and the first time it came out, I used to love the Sweeney, but it did strike me as a bit odd. The two policemen, the two police stars of the show, were sitting in a car, and some schoolgirls walked by, and the one lead policeman looked at the other and said, "Whoa. Schoolgirls in stockings, that don't half turn me on," or words to that effect. And I sat there at the age of 12 or something like that, thought, is that right?
Oh yeah, I actually had a boyfriend who once said something like that to me, and I was totally shocked, actually. I should say this or no, but I was... well, no, it's interesting.
Unfortunately, Annie, we're run out of time, so maybe you want to think about that again. All right.
Yeah, maybe I do. I'll leave that one for...
Thanks, Annie.
Me love you long time.
Yes, me love you long time in a purely platonic and consensual manner. Hands above the table at all times. So, it's happening again in Bournemouth. How bizarre. Stinging eyes, feeling sick. Welcome to my world. I have to hold my breath while walking through London. While driving in, I have to have the car's air intake on recycle. As in, don't take any air in from the inside. Just keep recycling my own fug.
Disgusting.
Exactly. I have to sit in it in my own fug. Oh, the smell of it. And so the mayor, who likes to say no, has now made it much more expensive for polluting vehicles to drive into the centre of London, with one exception. Well, a couple of exceptions. One of which was black cabs are still allowed to drive it around. So what's the bloomin' point? An extra £10 or there or thereabouts, 20 quid if you've got an old clapped out old jalopy like I do, to drive into the centre of London. But he's allowing the tens of thousands of belching diesel-powered black cabs to still drive around the place. It makes no sense. As in, at all. Buses, the same. I mean, you're either going to do something about it or you're not going to do something about it. But he's been doing a little bit, but not much. Just enough to make it appear as though he's doing something. But more than that, he will not. Further than that, he will not go. The mayor who likes to say, no, you can't have that nice bus, and no, you can't have that nice bridge, and no, you can't have Uber or anything else to come to that. Thanks a lot, Sadiq Khan. And if they did extend the what do they call it, the toxic charge 24 hours a day, which they should, then I would be screwed. Because there's no way that my old car would pass those tests. It's 20 years old. It still functions perfectly, and you could buy it from me for the price of 1/10 of a new iPhone. Texts and tweets and emails. This says, why go? And it works, by the way. And there's no queue. I'll take any reasonable offer. There's a new iPhone coming out, and they said that, we can't keep up with demand. Demand is so huge that we've completely run out. And the cynic in me thought, well, have you completely run out because you didn't make very many? That seems to be their modus operandi. Release something with an enormous amount of publicity, and then don't release that many to market, and then the people will say that, it's completely sold out. It's more successful than you could possibly imagine. £1,000 for a phone? What? Apple Inc. quashed any concern of muted demand for its iPhone X, saying that pre-orders for the 10th anniversary phone were off the charts. Pre-orders for the 10th anniversary phone started from 12:01 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 7:01 GMT. Today. Did you manage to secure yours? No. An Apple spokesperson told Reuters, "We can see from initial response that customer demand is off the charts." Well, you try saying that. It says, "We're working hard to get this revolutionary new product into the hands of every customer who wants one as quickly as possible." It's a revolutionary product, all right. It's a revolutionary way of extracting £1,000 out of people for a disposable item. Because unlike £1,000 that you could spend on a coat or a car, you don't want to chuck that one out for a new one in a year. I bet some of you thought, £1,000 for a coat? That bloke's off his chump. But you wouldn't think twice about £1,000 for a phone, because, it's a bit bigger and it's a bit thinner and it's a bit shinier. It still can't make any blooming phone calls. If you're calling this show, then please use a landline, if at all possible, because mobile phones cannot be used as phones. Apple's website showed delivery times pushed from 5 to 6 weeks for this phone. Analysts are concerned about the production of the new phone, which for the first time includes facial identification software to replace the fingerprint used on previous phones. It will still be covered with fingerprints, but you can't actually open it with one. You have to open it with your face. Your beautiful face. You have to smash your face into the phone in order to open it. Face prints. It's the new thing. This says, why go clubbing? Have I read this one already? It says, why go clubbing when you can build your own club on Minecraft and invite all your online friends? That's what I do. I drink a bottle of wine and play Minecraft with friends. It's surprisingly sociable, says that tweeter. No, it's not. There's nothing sociable about it. It's hard to tell when it's written down whether you're being sarcastic or not. Is that sarcasma that I've heard so much about? Why go clubbing when you can build your own club on Minecraft and invite all your online friends? I don't know, maybe it is. Maybe this is an attempt at amusement. I drink a bottle of wine and play Minecraft with friends. It's surprisingly sociable. No, it isn't. There's nothing sociable about it. Get your face out your phones, kids. Whatever happened to getting pie-eyed, getting off your face and having a quick cavort? in some dark corner of a club, assuming that everybody is, has signed a waiver of agreement beforehand. Joey says, in reference to Dion, a caller some while ago, says, how many women can you meet in one night at a pub? I can review thousands on an app without leaving home. Review? I suppose that is exactly what people are doing. I've seen them do it, standing at bus stops, going, no, 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 just swiping. Whereas before, it were grand. In the good old days, you used to have to actually go up to a real human being. Can you believe that?
No.
And practice some constipated chat-up line. Are you hot in here, or is it me? No, that's not right. Am I hot, or is it you in here? No, that's not it. Are you dancing? It's not romantic, is it? I don't think that the new world is actually an improvement on the old. There's nothing better about it. What happened to romance? Now it's all about the war factor. Okay, so you used to approach a person of whatever sex it was that you were into, and based on their looks primarily. But then there was you had what did they used to call it? A conversation. Yes, you used to talk to each other. Can you believe that? Now it's all about the swipe. It's all about the selfie. I've seen kids doing selfies, and they've all got a selfie face, which they have obviously practiced in the mirror. And you can see the result of it in the Daily Mail on a regular basis. Some dope will have been accused or found out to be doing something or other, and there'll be an endless selection of selfie pictures, all of which are capturing the exact same expression, one that they have practiced in the mirror over and over again. They've taken a picture from this angle and that angle and up the nostrils and from above their heads, and they've determined that this particular pout is the one that shows off their best side. And anytime anybody gets a phone out, they all they're like robots. It's actually quite scary. They all go into selfie pout mode. Freakish. I'm very disappointed with the kids. I don't mind telling you. I think they're a great disappointment. Patrick says, after leaving the pub rather worse for wear one night back in my distant and misguided youth, I ripped off what I believed to be a large sprig of mistletoe from a tree growing in someone's front garden. Next morning, passing the same tree on my way to work, I realised to my horror that I'd removed the trunk from what was... I'd removed the trunk from what was obviously the owner's prized topiary elephant. Are you sure it was the trunk? Mike says, if polluting vehicles are not allowed, then what about when the Queen rides about in her horse and cart, and apparently horses exhaust a lot of methane gas, and apparently that's not good for the ozone layer either. Yeah, thanks a lot, Your Majesty, you're not helping. Exactly. It makes no sense to me. I mean, unless I'm getting this completely wrong. What sense does it make to ban polluting cars from the road when the most polluting cars have to be cabs, diesel-powered old black cabs, and buses? They're the worst. Although I mentioned this last week, and I got absolutely no traction on this whatsoever, but I do notice that there's a lot of even new-looking, even fancy-looking cars that are belching out the smoke out the back that the army could use as a distraction device for an attack. You know, when they throw those smoke grenades out, it looks like, I don't know, it's like they're burning chip fat in there. And I've noticed it just recently. Is there something that is being added to or not taken away from petrol these days? And I did mention, there was no comeback on this, the possibility that it might be cheap fuel, as in supermarket petrol. Unless supermarkets, petrol stations are advertising with us, in which case It is such a clean fuel, I'd drink it.
And remember, darling, I don't work before 10 in the morning and never after 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yet you're happy to drive your 20-year-old banger into the city. Banger? How dare you? Where'd you get that from? Oh, I say it all the time. Yeah, that's right. Well, it is true. Are you calling me hypocritical? Guilty. Yeah, but the mayor of London, the mayor who likes to say
No.
has specified that there is only a toxic charge up to the hour of like 6:30 or something like that, and I come in after 6:30. So, haha, charade you are. Well, and that again makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, the pollution doesn't just blow away unless it's windy, in which case it does. But if it's not, then it stays there, whether you drive in at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Makes no difference. So what's the point of stopping the toxin charge at 6:30 in the bloomin' evening? It seems just as though he's doing something to make it appear as though he's doing something, because 50,000 people a year die an early death in this country because of pollution. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'm going to repeat myself. If people could get high from pollution, then the government would have the army out on the roads preventing it from happening. The army would actually be shooting pollution if people could get high from it. But you can't get high from it, you can only get dead. So that's okay then. Here's Colin Epsom. Hello, Martin.
Hi, Nick.
Martin.
I wanted to call and, as you keep asking to correct you, I thought I'd give it a go.
Yeah, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it.
Video games can be social.
Yeah, I don't think. No, I don't think so.
All right, I'm going to
I
give
think
you
they are the very essence of unsociability.
Okay. Well, for one thing, I know one of my good friends who met her boyfriend on World of Warcraft.
Now, when you say met,
well, you know, like it's a big multiplayer game, right?
Yeah.
So you've got thousands and hundreds of thousands, millions of people on, and you know, people get talking. You know, their characters chat, and one thing leads to another, and there you go.
But so their characters get to go out with each other, but do they get to go out with each other in, you know, real life?
Yeah, and then they met up in person through meeting on the game.
Now, did their actual personal physical presence relate in any way, shape, or form to their avatar? No.
Yeah, no, they weren't dressed up in sort of golden armor and stuff like that.
And they weren't thin and gorgeous.
Actually, she is pretty gorgeous.
Right.
You know.
Okay then.
So that lasted for a while, and obviously sort of crashed and burned eventually. But
Well,
you know,
obviously. Now, what do you mean? Well, because of the way that they met. Obviously, it wasn't built to last.
Maybe not. I don't know if video.
Well, now you're agreeing with me.
Well, you know, in terms of meeting people, it's very social. You've got esports now. Have you ever heard of esports?
What's that?
So
You take ecstasy and then try and play football? That sounds like a very bad idea.
No.
A lot of hugging going on, though. A huge amount.
No hugging. It's just a big room full of fat, sweaty nerds playing video games against each other in a stadium full of people.
Wow, that sounds terrible.
You know, you can watch that on BBC Three now. They show.
There's no such thing.
No, BBC Three online. You can watch the tournament for Rocket League, which is a game played between remote-controlled cars online, knocking a football into a goal.
Wow, and to think that that channel was so unsuccessful that they had to actually take it off the air. I can't believe it.
Me neither. But do you know what the jackpot was for a game called Dota 2 for esports last year?
A night out with yourself?
No. Bearing in mind that there's teams of 11 that play this, so it's like a football game, right?
Yeah.
Except it's nothing to do with football. It was over $40 million for the winning team in esports. Like, it's a big thing, Nick. You know, it's really taken off. You need to roll with the times. Maybe get yourself a PlayStation 4 and play with me sometime.
That's never going to happen. How much did you say?
Sorry?
What was the prize money, did you say?
Over $40 million.
You must be making that up.
No.
$40 million?
You do have to split it between, like, 10 people.
Oh, well, forget it then. 40 million? For doing what?
Well, for playing the game, being the best in the world at the game. You could say the same for footballers. What do they deserve that kind of money for?
But because people go to watch them do it.
Yeah, people go to watch them do this too. Except,
Oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. People go to watch other people play video games? I don't believe you.
There are YouTube channels dedicated to this kind of thing that make multi-million pounds per year recording themselves or streaming live them playing video games, Nick.
Oh, you know, I said that I was disappointed with the kids. Disappointed doesn't actually encompass how bad I'm feeling about them right now. That's terrible. Not only do they not play sports, they play video games, but they can't even be bothered to play the video games, so they watch other people play video games. How supine do you have to be?
Yeah, I mean, it does echo Idiocracy a little bit, which I watched on your recommendation.
Ah, and?
And I mean, filmically it's awful, but you know, thematically I fully agree. I think it's very slightly foreboding and potentially...
Did you laugh?
But, you know, I did laugh. I like Terry Crews in it. I like Terry Crews in anything, really. He's pretty good. And no, I like the you know, it's good. You didn't give too much away yet. You did kind of sum it up quite well. You should...
right, well, I don't like spoilers. I hate people who give spoilers. But there's not really much to give a spoiler about. It's just a comedy that is a comedy about the future, which actually turns out to be a documentary about the president.
You are going to love President Trump.
Oh, I said president, but I actually meant present. It's a comedy. It's a documentary about the president. Present. So I keep doing it.
Oh, I also on the president side, I wanted to let you know. Did you see this article came up from 1980 something?
Oh God, what's he done now?
And he well, like, okay, so this
is this the letter that he wrote about himself, about pretending to be his secretary?
As a secretary to was it the Washington Post? I could not stop laughing.
I think it's the New York, magazine. I don't think it's the New Yorker. I think it's New York magazine. They came up with some letter that from Donald Trump's office regarding, was it the accusation?
It was all the women he goes out to.
Right, accusation of sexual shenanigans. And he had his secretary, he said, waggling his fingers in the air to denote inverted commas around the word secretary, write a letter, and I should have printed this out because it was just priceless. And it's supposedly in the words of his... In fact, you know what, I'm going to look it up, because it's better if I do it word for word.
Even the grammar is word for word. He even uses an ellipsis at the point where he would pause to, you know, think about the next four-letter sentence.
But he does this. He has a history of pretending to be somebody else, giving praise to himself. he does that a lot.
Do you think we're too harsh on him because he has an inferiority complex? Do you think it's just, you know, because his daddy didn't hug him enough? Yes,
I do think that it's because his daddy didn't hug him enough, or appreciate him, or think that he was any good. I imagine that his dad had pretty much the same opinion as we do, you know, from close contact with him.
I mean, can you imagine your son turning out to be Donald Trump? I mean, you'd be even more disappointed in him than
the kids
like me who don't see their girlfriend for 2 weeks playing Minecraft.
Oh, please. You have got to get your face out of your phone. Seriously, Martin.
It's no laptop.
Well, it's the same thing. It's all screen-based. Stop looking at things on screens. It's not doing you any good. Trust me when I'm telling you this.
I listen to you on my phone.
As I was saying, phones are an excellent method of communication, and people really should use them more. All right, thanks a lot, Martin. The person that was tweeting me about Minecraft earlier on has come back to me. Says, I'm not being sarcastic, I'm the Minecraft clubman. I genuinely built a 6-floor Minecraft super club. First floor wood, second floor concrete, third floor I theme, depending on who's coming along. Or maybe one theme? Last month it was glass walls because I had a Haitian-themed luau up there and we wanted to see the sea around the club. Don't knock online raving. You are out of your mind. It's not social. You're playing with cartoons on a screen. There's nothing social about it. And Rachel says, Nick, are you a parking ticket? Because you've got fine written all over you. All right, let's do that. I know it's extremely inappropriate under the circumstances, but let's do chat 3.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
This says, you were talking about texting. It does make me laugh, the amount of people who walk into me when they do not see me. I am visually impaired, and even I watch what I'm doing. Yeah, really, I don't know, maybe it's just survival of the fittest being the smartest. If you are constantly walking about with your face in your phone, then you are going to be hit by something or someone. Just make sure it's not me. Chat up line, 10-ton penguin. I just thought I'd say something to break the ice. Of course, you've got to have something to say after that. That's the problem. Nick, did it hurt when you fell from heaven? Groan. That's awful. Do you have any raisins? How about a date then? Chiswick, hello Z.
That I like.
Z.
Sorry?
Yes, Z.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah. Now, I went to a club one night, and I saw this most amazing-looking woman. She was incredible. And I said, what are you doing here? She goes, what do you mean? I said, this is a gay club. And I just said, who the F are you? And she looked me up and down and said, well, who the F are you? And I kept on bumping into her at night. I was not at the club, but at different events, because I was a PR manager. And then I just said, look, would you like to sing for our band? Because you just look amazing. And she goes, no, I'm a model, not a singer. And then I kept on bumping into her again and again. And then I said, okay, would you allow us to use your image? Because she worked for Piers and Gel, or I'm not sure what they're called, the French people. And why are you laughing?
Is there a point to this story, Z?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, she ended up singing for us.
Right.
And she did the Marianne Faithfull song, which is Why Did You Do What You Did.
Why did you do what you did to me, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, you're okay. Anyway, and now she's a singer in a band.
Right. So that actually there is no point to this story.
There is. The point is that now she's a model and a singer, and she's worked with Naomi Campbell.
Right. Well, and Duck, I think, would be the best advice. Working with Naomi Campbell, Duck. You met a model, as in a three-dimensional representation of a proposed structure. Thanks a lot, Z. What a tremendous story. I got lost in that tale. This says, with everyone glued to their phones playing games and or gambling, nature will suddenly notice that we have lost interest in her, and, in her disappointment and shame, will top herself. The insects have started already, says Ashley. Wow, this show took a bizarre turn over the last 5 minutes or so. There is a big trouble about insects, and I was talking about that, was it last week? If you missed it, I think the figure is something of the order of 75% of the insects, is it on Earth or just in this country? I can't remember. Well, let's say on Earth, or just in this country, have disappeared over the past decade or so. 75%. That's bad news, because insects are something upon which we are dependent. Because we can't pollinate plants like insects do. See David Attenborough for further details. Now, I was talking about this in relation to the notion these revelations about potential sex attacks in the Palace of Westminster and over in Hollywood, and if it's happening there, it's happening absolutely everywhere. And one of the reasons that was given to us as an explanation as to why the police are arresting so few people these days was that they're spending all of their time concentrating on historic sex crimes. I would suggest that if they are doing that now, then in the future they're going to be overwhelmed. And the story came out this week that arrests in England and Wales have halved, while crime has reached record levels. And I would suggest that it might be because arrests in England and Wales have halved that crime has reached record levels. But like I say, I'm not an expert, so... 1.5 million arrests in the year ending March 2008. 779,000 in the year ending March this year. That's halved. Do you feel safer in your home?
No.
No. Than you did 10 years ago, for instance? Of course not. And neither do you feel safer in the streets or in the supermarket or in the car park or on the road or anywhere else for that matter. The total number of recorded crimes has risen above 5 million for the first time. We did it. We broke through that big psychological barrier. That's a 13% year-on-year rise in crime in England and Wales. So keep these numbers in mind. Crime has risen 13% in the past year, and arrests have gone down by the same amount. That sounds like a connection to me.
Correct.
It used to be known as crime and punishment. Now we've got the crime. Where's the punishment? Get Dostoevsky on the phone and he'll explain it to us. The Home Office said that the fall in arrests was partly down to a strategy of keeping young people out of jail using cautions and warnings rather than arresting them.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, but it's not working though, is it? It's a plan. This isn't by accident. They've actually thought this up. The government is forever banging on about sending messages. Well, the message that it sends now is that you can pretty much do anything you want to do and there won't be any comeback. You're welcome. It's like a two-tier system of the law. There's one tier for those of us that are fearful of breaking the law, also known as law-abiding people. Those people that stay within the rules and pick up after them and don't nick what they can't afford or don't want to pay for. That's one tier. And then there's another tier for those that don't care about breaking the law and so do whatever they want, knowing that they can almost always get away with it. And apparently that's true. They can almost always get away with it. I mean, police forces are now treating, they're being accused of treating common crimes like burglary and, somebody breaking your stuff as trivial matters. And they are, unless they happen to you, at which point they aren't trivial at all. They're life-ruining. Somebody burgles your house, you don't just shrug it off. You don't feel safe in your house at all from that moment on. They're also accused of concentrating on investigating historical sex abuse allegations, which a lot of people are very, shall I say suspiciously? A lot of people seem overly keen to get them to stop doing. Odd. Oh, it's a complete waste of time, they say. Don't look here, look over there, look somewhere else. I find that curious. I won't say suspicious, I'll just say it's odd. That they're accused of concentrating on investigating historical sex abuse allegations. Well, there's several things there. They should be doing that, because if you are of the impression that all of that's been cleared up now they got Jimmy Savile banged to rights, and the Roman Catholic Church have apologised profusely over and over and over again.
I am very sorry that I screwed up totally I mean, I am so sorry. You just don't know how sorry I am. I'm sorry.
If you think that that's the end of it, then I have a made-in-China Swiss watch that I'd like to sell you. It's everywhere. So they should be investigating so-called historical crime, sex crimes. But if they add that to the ones that are going on right now, then they will be overwhelmed. I mean, there's 20,000 fewer policemen now than there were 10 years ago? Something like that. Since Theresa May has been in a position of power, 20,000 fewer police persons. Thanks a lot, Mrs. M. So if you're famous or rich or well-connected, it seems more likely that you're going to die a peaceful death before you get convicted of an historical sex crime, because it's almost like the upper echelons of society have closed ranks about this. They don't want to pop the lid off that box. In the year to March 2017, only 11% of crimes resulted in someone being charged. Isn't that incredible? 11%. Only 8% of reported theft offences resulted in charges. 8! And for criminal damage, the figure was 6.4%. And that means, unless I'm getting this completely wrong, there doesn't seem to be any other way of looking at it to me. That means crime does pay. Over and over again. You've got better odds of winning by burgling somebody's house than you have of playing the lottery. The Home Office said the drop in arrests was partly down to greater use of other outcomes, such as community resolutions, as part of the efforts to reduce the number of young people entering custody. Now, it's a good idea for fewer young people to be locked up in jail or Borstal or whatever it is these days. But it doesn't seem to have worked, because the number of crimes has gone up. Whatever they're doing at the moment isn't working. And like I said, it's just a thought, but could it possibly have anything to do with the 20,000 drop in police numbers that Theresa May has taken personal control over as the first Home Secretary and now our robotic Prime Minister? I mean, I know she's up to her epaulets in Brexit and terror, but there's a real homegrown terror at work in this country. And the government seems to be okay with it. Principally, I would imagine, because it's not happening to them. 9 out of 10 home burglary investigations are closed without a suspect being identified. 9 out of 10! And in cases like this, police deem the crime to have been investigated. 9 out of 10 times. Well, we've had a quick peek. And there wasn't a bloke with a mask on and a bag marked swag over his shoulder, so we give up. They deem a crime to have been investigated, and this is a quote, as far as reasonably possible, based on the evidence available with the case, then closed, pending further investigative opportunities becoming available. They closed the case pending further investigative opportunities becoming available, which would be if the thief presented themselves to the police already handcuffed, having signed a confession. Then they might arrest them if they weren't busy filling in a form. Is that part of the problem? Form filling? Because the NHS seems to be rife with it. I've been in and out of hospitals on a regular basis lately because somebody I know is ill. And some of the nurses, they do fit the description angels. How they manage to maintain a cheery disposition in those circumstances is absolutely beyond me. I couldn't do that job. But there does seem to be an enormous number of nurses who don't do anything other than stare into a computer screen. What's that about? I would imagine that there's nurses, and by extension, police people as well, who are great at their job of caring and tending and get rewarded with a promotion to some managerial overseeing position. where they get to sit in front of a computer all day concocting statistics to make the government look good, or to protect it against legal challenges, or to secure the bonus of the chief executive. But what they're not doing is any actual nursing, or in the police's case, policing. Is that it? Have they been reduced to box-ticking form fillers? This one says, I think this is the same guy again. Break a rule. You can normally only tweet or text or call once. He says, yes, you say it's just looking at the screen, Nick. I'm the 6th floor Minecraft Super Club man, but I actually met my wife in my Minecraft club at my Trinidad and Tobago themed night. I don't have any photos of her, but trust me, she looks like a model and she's a millionaire entrepreneur who needs real life. Yeah, your online wife is actually a £300 bedbound man in Cleethorpes called Gordon. I hate to break the news to you.
Oh, no.
Exactly. Braintree. Hello, Paul.
Good evening, or is it nearly good morning?
Almost.
Maybe they should build some custody suites out of Minecraft. I'm recently retired. The biggest issue in Essex is the...
but you're recently retired what?
Police officer.
Ah.
I'm one of those managers that you were talking about that sat behind a computer. The issue is that, well, one of the issues is obviously cuts have consequences. The current Prime Minister could answer all of these questions if she could be bothered.
Yeah.
But...
Because she was in charge of the Home Office when when the rot set in, correct?
Well, she caused the rot. Let's face it. Let's not beat about the bush. She's the one who actually made us go through the cuts. The public were behind it at the time because they thought, the public sector had it easy and their pensions are good, etc., etc. Now they're starting to realise that it wasn't such a good idea. The PCC's totally acquiesced to everything that she asked for.
Well, what is it that she asked for?
Well, the closure of a state. I mean, if you look at Essex in particular, there are no custody suites in Braintree. I could just go through the whole county.
And what is a custody suite?
Well, a custody suite is where a person, if they're arrested, they're taken to the custody suite where they're seen by the custody sergeant. Now, the fact is that the application of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, fantastic, it does protect people's rights, etc. But there is a layer which allows lazy people to not arrest somebody. There are certain criteria that you have to meet in order to effect an arrest. And if those are not met, then the custody sergeant is obligated not to accept that person into custody.
And now, so what was the big change then?
Well, the big change for us was the fact that they closed all these custody suites, which meant that our staff were driving from, say, as a real example, from Loughton to Colchester, which is probably a 120-mile round trip, because the custody suites at Grays and Harlow were full, and there were no custody suites in Epping Forest or Loughton. Now, that is not acceptable on anybody's stance.
But I just am interested to determine what was the difference between what you were allowed to arrest for before and after.
I apologise. So you'd have to convince a custody sergeant. This was brought about by the government. That you'd have to convince the custody sergeant that there were good grounds to bring somebody into custody. So it could be to protect them or to protect another person. That there's still outstanding property. You have to carry out. It's a prompt and effective arrest. And what's happening now?
But why was that different? Because all that sounds reasonable, but you're suggesting that there was a difference that made your job more difficult.
Well, it was the way that it was implemented, which meant that people weren't able to convince the custody sergeant. I'll give you an example. So if you put in an inappropriate, or what is deemed to be an inappropriate delay in an arrest, it's not prompt and effective. You're not looking for property, etc. So that's what's brought down a lot of these arrests, because the delays are built in because of the workloads. 20,000 fewer officers. The workload has increased, whatever anybody says. It means that they've got more stuff in their tray, they're not able to cope with that, and therefore everything is delayed. So when they go out and carry out an arrest, unless there's outstanding property, the arrest isn't necessary or proportionate, and that's what's causing the problem.
But when you say, I'm having trouble understanding this, there's a delay, so let's talk about burglaring, okay? So somebody goes in and nicks my well, I haven't got anything to steal, really, but they come in and decide I haven't got anything to steal and take a pee on my rug as vengeance. So that would be criminal damage, right?
Well, okay. Without going into the full definition of burglary, you've got to enter a building with the intent to steal, or having entered as a burglar.
But what's this delay thing that you were talking about? So if you delay the arrest, then that's not good. I don't get it.
So, well, if you delay the arrest, then it's got to be necessary and proportionate. So if you're outstanding property from your burglary, so say, for instance, I mean, burglary is not a very good example because I can't imagine many custody sergeants not bringing somebody in for custody. But if, for instance, there was a massive delay of, say, 6 weeks between your offence being reported, the person being identified and brought into custody, and there is no outstanding property, then it is written within the law that it's not necessary or proportionate to bring that person in because it's not property.
So they get a pass if some time goes by?
Yep.
What?
And here's the other thing. Bail, and I've left since this has come in, I'm pleased to say, but I understand that bail is now restricted to so many days. So you can't keep someone on bail forever, which is right as well, because people have got to get on with their lives. But equally, the police are under a greater amount of pressure. So because the bail periods are shorter, there's less willingness by the officers to carry out an arrest because it means that they haven't got the time to put people on bail.
Why, let me ask you this, and how it might be solved. Why are why are less than 1 in 10 burglaries solved?
Right. Now, I am a dyed-in-the-wool detective, okay? And last week, my former chief constable, my former boss, tweeted that burglaries are there are fewer burglaries now than there were 20 years ago. But what he didn't put was how many detections that they've had. Now, I have to say, I get very disappointed. I don't think there are many natural detectives out there, if I'm honest with you. Now, the modern detective, they go for the modern technique. They don't want to do the hard yards, but they're still getting the crimes coming in. So they've got more and more crimes. They've got fewer officers within the CID now than they've ever had because, and we'll go back to the conversation you were having earlier on, there are more people carrying out investigations into historic sex offences and domestic violence.
Right, so that's a thing then. When people say that the police are concentrating on what they deem to be the wrong things, that there is something in that, whether or not they are what we would agree with them being the wrong things or not.
It can't be it can't be the wrong thing that we're investigating domestic violence.
No, I agree.
It can't be the wrong thing that we're investigating. Look,
so it all comes down to numbers again.
Of course it does, but the issue is
Paul, I'm really sorry, but I'm coming up to the top of the hour and the news is coming up here. But I appreciate the call. Thanks, Paul.
Hi, honey. How are you?
Yeah, that's the robot that will be delivering your social care services at an office near you soon.
Correct.
Prepare to receive everything that you deserve. Sarah says, I had some lovely visitors down over half-term. We had to show the girls, aged 10 and 13, how to work an old-fashioned dial telephone that was attached to a plug and wire, like we all had in our halls. The children really couldn't work out how to use it. Or am I showing my age? Both. Why did we used to have the phone in the hall? Yes, that's bizarre, but we used to have that too. They used to make telephone table seat combinations that we used to have in our hall. An actual piece of furniture that you could sit on while receiving an telephone call in the freezing cold hall. And another question that's always puzzled me is 999 is the emergency service, isn't it? When you dial 999, you're in big trouble. And they made it virtually the longest number you could possibly dial on an old rotary telephone. It took as long as it would take for the emergency that you were suffering from to either be resolved or kill you before you could actually get through to 999. Birmingham, hello Shirley.
Oh, hi, Nick.
Shirley.
Hi. You were worried about the insects.
Yeah.
You can, if you can find a massively back copy of The Guardian, this story was in there. What they do in China, because they've got no bees over there, they hand pollinate.
Wait a minute. They've got no bees in China.
No. That they hand pollinate.
Is that alphabetically speaking, or the actual insects we're talking about now?
The insects. They've lost them. Yeah, they've vanished. They hand pollinate the trees. It's an annual event. They've got a lot of pear trees. Apparently, do they not export a lot of pear juice or pears? They've got pear juice, apple juice, and 50,000 people go out with sticks and self-pollinate the trees.
Oh.
Disgusting.
Well, I think you got some of that right, yes. They do have... It's almost like we are fashioning our own demise by continually spraying our crops with insecticide. What that is doing is, of course, killing insects. And we require insects to be the pollinators of the plants that we are growing and relying on for food. And to feed the animals that then become our food. But continually spraying insecticide here, there, and everywhere, baby, does mean that the insects that we rely on are dying. We should squirt the stuff less.
Also, Nick, it's a weather problem, because you can also find this in one of the back copies of the newspapers, or it may even have been in Private Eye. That China's divided into 10 regions. Well, one of the regions, I think this is a Private Eye one, the self-pollination was a Guardian article. One of the regions in China complained to the other region and said, tell us when you're changing the weather, because we're short of water. do you So they've got, in China, they've got, is it £50 million weather changing department fully staffed? So, because the weather's chemically created, it generates problems. And where I am in Birmingham, the government does the same thing here. Because we're in the EU. Well, the EU has took it upon itself to declare Birmingham an European Union
a no-go area.
Experimental weather-changing area.
Yeah.
So we're fundamentally
really
under
Where did you read that? You know that Private Eye is a comedy magazine.
Yeah, I know. I know. But China is divided into regions. The self-pollination was a Guardian article. You can back up
just because it's divided into
that
regions doesn't mean to say that one of the regions is affecting the weather through chemistry. That is almost certainly not happening. You don't need to worry about that, Shirley.
They've got in China their own weather-changing department.
I very much doubt that.
They've mucked about so much that they can only... like what sprung to mind, when you dye your hair, you can... Or straighten your hair if it's curly. You can do it so often that it never
you change the weather?
Curly. Yeah, if you keep on mucking about with it, you just kind of... It doesn't really go back to natural if you do it too, a bit like your hair, really. But here in Birmingham, they muck about because we're in the EU.
You can't be serious.
It's absolutely horrendous. All the paint is stripped off the doors, the railings, the cars. If you've got to buy a red car, it goes pink. If you've got a... Just with me, or the blue railings, they go like rusty or white.
Yeah. Your blue railings turn white. Groovy. Wow, that's...
Yeah.
There's an entire kaleidoscope up there in Birmingham.
Yowza.
Had no idea.
Yeah, they just spray and it's
the EU that are doing it. You say?
Yeah, the EU. The EU declares stuff like they're causing us to suffer with wheelie bins. That was an EU declaration. I've told you this before, but you don't believe me. It's full of rubbish.
Not one single word that you've ever said. No.
There was an empty house across where I live, and I counted 59 black bags in the garden. I mentioned this before. Nobody is coping with the EU ordered wheelie bins.
They
EU. Order stuff.
It's not the EU. People should be able to negotiate the rules surrounding recycling, for crying out loud. It's got nothing to do with the EU.
But they said have the bins, you see, that we never had before. You know, and they made
the EU did not do that. Your local council may have done that, but the EU did not do that.
They said
wouldn't it be nice to recycle a bit more, which is correct. And if your local council then provided you with excellent wheelie bins as a personal service to you and and your neighbours, then you should be most appreciative.
And nobody's cutting the hedge because of the EU. There's nowhere to put the hedge cuttings. They don't fit in the wheelie bin.
Right. Well, don't put your garden waste in your plastic waste. Crying out loud. Anyway, Shirley, you leave that with me, and I'll investigate it thoroughly. Is it just me, or did that make no sense at all?
No.
Not just me. Good. In the last 50 years, the global human population has nearly doubled. If people would just keep their hands off each other for 5 minutes, the average calories consumed per person has increased by 30%. And the evidence is waddling down a high street near you. To cope with the ever-growing demand for food, more land has been brought into agricultural production, mainly by clearing forests. And farming has become much more intensive. Fertilizers, pesticides, new plant varieties have allowed farmers to increase their average yield of food per hectare by 130%. And the result of this is that we are... the lights have gone out. Hang on. That we're screwing with nature, and the result of that is that we have decreased the amount of insects that are flying about the place by a massive amount. 75% down. 75 billion tonnes of soil is lost every year, washed away or blown out to sea after ploughing. We are we're stressing the earth to the point that it can't hold itself together anymore. And the ecosystem that we are ruining, this is from an organisation or an online thing called China Dialogue. So this is about the hand pollination that they're doing in China. Not because they want to, because they have to. This ecosystem that we're ruining is actually created by wild organisms. Wild organisms. You know, the wild organisms. Worms and wriggling things like that, but flying insects as well, which pollinate 75% of the species that we rely on as human beings. 75% of the food that we eat is dependent on flies, butterflies, bees, wasps, that sort of thing. And we are shooting ourselves in the foot as a species by killing all the insects for short-term profitability. Once again, short-termism is what will do for the human race. How many times have I said that? Over and over and over again. So the apple and pear orchards of southwest China are now hand-pollinated because the vital pollinators can't survive this intensive insecticide spraying. And farmers are now being forced to hand-pollinate their trees. They're carrying pots of pollen and paintbrushes with which they individually pollinate every flower. That's just nuts. But that's only possible for a really high-value crop like apples and pears. But we don't have enough people on the planet. Even if they all stopped whatever it is that they did for a job and just became full-time pollinators, there aren't enough people on Earth to get this done. And without bees and wasps and all of those other flying things that do for us, we'd be forced to survive on, beans and pumpkins. And that's about it. But on the plus side, we'd all be a lot thinner.
I feel lightheaded. That's what I feel.
That's because they've got nothing to eat. You'd feel lightheaded too. And I got that wrong, by the way. This information is by a person called Dave Goulson, a professor of biological science at Stirling University in the UK. So he sounds like an expert, therefore we are not remotely interested in anything he has to say. He says, without bees, our diets would be depressingly poor. It's even worse than I said before. No beans or pumpkins. You ain't got no beans or pumpkins. There would be no raspberries or apples or strawberries or peas or beans or courgettes or melons or tomatoes or blueberries or pumpkins. And presumably there wouldn't be any food to feed the animals that we like to slaughter for their fresh, delicious meat. You know, animals like that. This is what we would be forced to eat if, or when the inevitable happens and we kill all the insects. Wheat, barley, corn, that's it.
Oh, no.
Wheat, barley, and corn, and that's it. This is what we're doing to ourselves. For reasons of short-term gain. We're taking noxious pesticide, and you know what? If it kills insects, if it takes them right out of the air and kills them really dead, then it's probably not that good for us either. It's just a thought. You know, the entire world is dying of cancer and every other kind of vile, unimaginable disease. And it's either the deodorant that you put under your arm, or it's a combination of all of the things that surround us. It's the insecticide, and it's the perfume, and it's the plastics, and all the rest of it. But if we're actually squirting poison on our food in order to kill the insects that like it, then that's probably not a good idea. Just a thought. Maybe we should spread it less. This professor said... is he a professor? Yeah, he is. He says, bees and other insects have provided free pollination for our crops for millennia. And are we appreciative?
No.
They will continue to do so if we learn to recognise their importance and return the favour by providing them with what they need to survive. He says we need to recognise that the health and well-being of our children depends upon us preserving a healthy environment, and that to do so requires that we show some respect for the myriad of wild animals and plants with which we share the world. Well, we ain't got no respect. So that's that then. We're doomed. Here's a call in Stoke-on-Trent. Hello, Liz.
Oh, hello there.
Hello there.
It's ages since I spoke to you last. I hope you're well.
Very.
Why I'm ringing is the silly logic or the irony of the fact that pesticides are being used, etc., to make more crops.
Mm-hmm.
But by doing that, we're killing the insects that propagate the plants.
Yeah. By trying to make more crops in the short term, we'll have less crops in the long term.
Yeah, it's mad.
It's a life lesson. Unfortunately, we'll all be dead. We won't be able to learn it because we'll have expired by then.
I hope so.
What?
And I hope so, and let the Earth get back to how it should be.
Well, now, wait a minute.
Well, we're destroying this planet.
Well, we're not helping. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, do you know what?
What?
I think, Nick, that we...
Now, you're not going to say something depressing now, are you, Liz?
Well, it's a truth, I think.
Okay, then. Sounds depressing.
Right. The humans now are, instead of advancing, which we should be doing, because we've got the so-called intelligence, etc., on the technology which we're using for bad more than good...
Artificial intelligence.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, the humans are retrograding, but that means going
regressing.
Yes.
We'll be regretting soon.
No.
We're regressing now.
No. Regressing is a wrong term because that means going back to how we were. but we've never been in this spot before. So I think we've reached a road along which we've come to a fork, like several of our ancestors, pre-human ancestors, that didn't make it,
like who?
Even evolutionary-wise, and so we'll be wiped out.
Yeah, what, like our ancestors, like Sid, Ethel, people like that?
you know what I mean?
No.
Oh, and let me I'll go. Just let me read this little thing. I think everybody's heard
what
it.
is it?
It's a truism.
Well, is it a poem? I hate poems.
Please, Nick, listen. Only after the last tree has been cut down, and the last fish has been caught, and the last river has been poisoned, will we realise that we can't eat money. And that's an old Native American proverb.
Wow.
And I've got it enlarged on a poster I bought from W.H. Smith years ago and had it framed. And
well, the Native American outlet W.H. Smith.
I think you can still buy it.
Yeah, the Navajo branch of Smith's.
Nice to speak to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Liz. Well, that was depressing. You know, she was a nice lady, but she's talking about the end of the world. As we know it, we're not feeling fine anymore. Sarah says, I had some... Oh, no, I read that one already. Nick, regarding mostly young folks having their faces planted in phones, Honolulu has banned texting and walking. That's true. I think they have. I think you're not allowed to text and walk in Honolulu. But if you're in Honolulu, why would you have your face stuck in a phone? It's supposedly one of the most beautiful places on earth, ain't it? Or I wonder if it's just one of those places that you think is beautiful till you actually get there, where it just you know, stinks to high heaven. It's just, but it is America, so it's bound to be one long stretch of road with signs for peppermint flavoured cigarettes. All those people with white teeth running through surf, enjoying life now that they're smoking peppermint flavoured cigarettes. Fresh breath confidence. They always used to advertise menthol cigarettes with people running through surf. Do you remember that? I think that it's a great step forward in health and safety. It's the peppermint that makes it healthful, and that is the official position of LBC. Zara says, years ago, a boy came up to me at a disco and said, "Would you like to dance?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Go on then." I know it's inappropriate and we shouldn't be doing it, but all right then, chat up lines. That's a good one. That might be the best one yet. Go on then. It's the line after that that's the problem, though. I mean, you can learn these until you've got a head full of them. It's what you say next that's the problem. Just stand there, bereft of ideas, open-mouthed, drooling on the floor. Michael says, if I could rearrange the alphabet, I'd put U and I together. There are 21 letters in the alphabet. Oh, wait, there are 26. I must have forgotten the letters U-R-A-Q-T. That is painful. Any success with that, Michael?
No.
I didn't think so, no. That is awful. You wouldn't get halfway through that before having a drink thrown in your face. Or somebody turning smartly on their stool to present their back to you. I like the "would you like to dance?" Yes, go on then. That's priceless. Oh, here's a good idea. Chris says soon nano drones will do the pollinating.
Affirmative.
Yeah, we'll have robots to do our pollinating for us. But unfortunately not. Because there's billions, I don't know, trillions of insects that are doing our pollinating for us. I mean, how many people are on Earth? 6 billion, there or thereabouts. And there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one. If people just kept their hands to themselves, then, it would be a lot less packed in. But we can't possibly, if there's not enough people to do the pollinating, 6 billion, then how many nano drones can we get? 6 billion. It's just impossible. But we're trying to solve a problem that we're creating. That makes, precious little sense, apart from a few people are making a massive amount of money from our short-termism. The people who manufacture the insects, the insecticide, and the people who run the agribusiness corporations. Those people are making a ton of money right now. They don't care about the future. And you could say that's the same with pretty much every business that human beings are running. I think that we've taken a wrong turn somewhere, the human race.
This guy thinks...
No! Here is a call in Chigwell. Oh, Rory.
Hello, Nick.
Yes, Rory.
Yes, I want to depress you more about the loss of insect life.
No.
Yes. It's the hidden truth is that it is the microwaves that we generate with the mobile phones that are killing the insects.
Microwaves.
It's not insecticide or anything like that. The hidden truth is the big firms that run the mobile phones business are covering up the fact that it is the microwaves that are being generated to penetrate buildings and so on. So as we can receive the calls, it's the strength of those microwaves that kill the insects.
And you're coming through so clearly that I know that you're calling me on a landline.
That's right.
Yeah, see?
Yes, I'm not a hypocrite.
Yeah.
I try not to be anyway.
Well, now, now you don't mean actually killing them. They might be confusing them.
No, killing them.
Killing them. How does it kill them?
Well, it's well known and it's been well publicised that when we use a microwave, you use a mobile phone, it actually heats up our soft material in our head by 2 degrees. Now, an insect.
Well, you say that, and my initial reaction was to disagree with you, but I do.
Okay, but it
I do remember an old phone that I used to have. I just couldn't make a call with it. I used to have to receive a call and say, "I'll call you back on my landline," because I did get a headache. A very strange headache.
It might have been an interference with the instrument.
Almost immediately, my head hurt, and I felt like I was doing myself damage.
No, you wouldn't feel this.
No, well, I did feel it.
No, not in a physical sense.
But I did feel it.
These are the microwaves that the ozone layer filters out from the sun. So if they were present, for example, in the atmosphere, in the early life would not have developed outside of water.
Now you're confusing me. See, I was agreeing with you. Well, I was agreeing with you about.
I'm sorry, you were agreeing with me.
Yeah, about the phones heating up your head.
Have to generate more energy to penetrate. So that's the microwaves. And insects, their skeletons being made of keratin, which are not affected by microwaves, but the soft material inside is, and that causes that to expand. The keratin doesn't.
Yeah, but you're not.
You can imagine what happens to the soft material in the insect.
Yeah, but what you're suggesting is that they just explode in mid-air.
Literally, yeah.
No, they don't. They don't, though. I've never seen an insect explode in mid-air.
Well, yes, I have. I've watched the soft material actually being forced out through the mandibles.
Oh, please.
It's ghastly, isn't it? Yeah.
I've got no idea what a mandible is, but I don't want to know.
Well, it's what they eat with.
Don't tell me.
Things at the front.
Soft material? That's just not true. They may be affecting them I'm surprised that they aren't affecting us. Maybe they are. I mean, if you could actually see the amount of...
skeletons are literally on the outside so far as that's concerned.
Ours are?
Yes.
Our skeletons are on the outside?
Yes, well, we're not contained in, like the keratin's contained in the insect. Consider the size. We're talking about microwaves. Well, in something the size of our brain, the length of a microwave doesn't count for much. But in the small space that there is in an insect inside, the microwave accounts for quite a lot. Quite a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And that kills the insects.
Well, I'm reading something. I'm reading something online here that says, "Why doesn't a microwave kill insects?" So presumably, somebody with too much time on their hands, and who perhaps the police should instigate an investigation into straight away, if not sooner, have put insects in a microwave oven. The result being that those insects have not died.
What haven't died?
Insects.
Where?
In a microwave. Aren't you listening to this show?
Have you turned the microwave on?
Well, I don't have a microwave. It's not me.
Right. So, no.
Kind of a psychopath do you think is running this show? I haven't put insects in a microwave.
No, you're not a psychopath at all. I know you like a laugh. You know, now, the thing is that I think it's a rather serious subject. I mean...
Well, it is, but I don't think... I just don't think you're right. I don't think it's got anything to do with microwaves.
Why not?
Because I think it's insecticides. Doesn't that sound more likely? That the poison that... No.
I'll give you a good example. In the countryside where...
But they're called insecticides. If we called them human sides, then...
Yes, you'll find insects in the countryside still, where there are less microwaves, where there's not a good reception on your microwave. But in town, where nobody is spraying around the insecticide... In town in London, you will not find a single insect factory.
Well, you find...
You sit on a bus,
you find some.
travel through London and not have one insect squashed on the windscreen.
Well, that's true.
Whereas you couldn't travel 100 yards down the road when I was a young man.
Yes, exactly. But it's got nothing to do with microwaves. It's insecticides.
Of course it is. But microwaves are being... It's only happened since the mobile phone came...
Well, you could say that it's only happened since people stopped wearing flares. Maybe that's what is killing insects.
Was that at the same time as microwaves came in? I don't know.
Absolutely. It was
the same time.
Coincidental,
so, the flares are covering up with microwaves, as it were.
Something like that.
Yeah. No, it's the big industries... Imagine it. Mobile phone industries... must shut down or change the microwave length.
Well, you've probably read this on the internet, haven't you, Rory?
You know, they won't do it.
Yeah, well, I don't think that they should. Not for this reason. Maybe for other reasons. It's probably not beneficial to human beings to be irradiated by all these waves. I mean, there's the radio that you're listening to right now is actually coming to you on an invisible wave. Can you believe that, Rory?
No. The obvious, we're not dropping dead all over the place.
Well, we are though. People die every second of every day. It's probably the radio that's doing it.
Was that happening to you?
I am personally responsible for countless deaths just during the course of this programme.
They are going to cover it up. I mean, let's face it, because of the enormous money invested in microwaves, mobile phones, and the whole industry.
Okay, well, you're making a lot of sense, Rory, and I bet that's the only time that anybody has ever said that to you.
Probably.
Does that make any sense at all?
No.
It's not just me. Okay, good. Has nothing to do with microwaves, he said, having no knowledge of the subject of any kind whatsoever. I don't have a microwave in my house. I just won't have one, because that's it's not natural. That's not how you cook food. Food cooked in a microwave is not the same as cooking it in in a proper oven or on a proper hob. Doesn't taste the same, doesn't cook the same. It's not natural. You don't want nuclear food, unless they're advertising with us, in which case it is a fresh and delicious way to prepare your evening meal. Bob says, are you from Holland? Because Amsterdam. That's a chat-up line. That's terrible. I don't even know what that means. What's the Amster part? I mean, I know what the Dayam means, but the Amster part? Terrible. You should be ashamed of yourself, Bob. That's the reason that you're alone. Jason says, I'm not too worried about insects dying out, as man is resourceful and we will be able to use poultry and bovine as substitutes. Substitutes for what? Bovine? A loaf of chicken will be commonplace, and we use self-raising cows for fairy cakes. What more do we need? Well, you make a lot of sense, Jason. That, yeah. A loaf of chicken makes the medicine go down. 0345. I think people are, I think that this show is becoming slightly hysterical. As in, you know, we need to be calmed down. With a taser, perhaps. Or something like that.
Come on, we're running late!
Ray says, at a disco, I asked a girl if she'd like a lift home. A little later, I remembered I came by bus. Georgia says, the decline of insects has nothing to do with mobile phones. There are lots of bees in my garden. I have a mobile phone. Well, there you are. Proof, if need be, need be. Plus, there are not a lot of bees in your garden, Georgia. Unless you don't live in Britain. I suppose that's entirely possible, because this show can be heard here, there and everywhere, baby. But I very much doubt it. There was a significant lack of insects in my garden this year. Normally, I have to devise some method of stopping ladybirds from getting into my nooks and crannies. I particularly dislike it when they get into my nooks.
Disgusting.
And so I was forced to, you know, make concoctions of lemon juice and vinegar and stuff like that, and paint it around the windowsills and stuff, because they would creep in. How they got in, I don't know. But I think they can squash themselves down to minuscule proportions to creep inside your house. And there used to be just hundreds of the things. And they would clump together. They would get inside the window sills and just huddle together for warmth. And you'd only notice it when you opened it, open the window in spring, and there'd be 100 of them in there, and they stink. I mean, they look quite, you know, as far as insects go, quite pleasant to look at, but they don't offer smell when they get together, and well, it's probably the you know, the excretions. Ugh. But there weren't any this year. Normally they're flocking to a southern aspect to, you know, get warm. But they just weren't there this year. We didn't have any wasps. Normally we've got to get the wasp man in, and he, you know, deals with them with great vengeance. Didn't have to get the wasp man in. There was no bees. It was, I can't even remember many flies. There's something seriously bad has happened, and we haven't paid the price of our mismanagement yet, but we will. 75% fewer insects is not a small thing, and I've been saying this for a dog's age. Have I been saying this over and over and over again?
Yes.
Yes. That you used to be able to drive not 10 feet in this country during the summer, and the front of your car would be a wasteland of dead insects. They sell products that you spray on the front of your car in order to get them off. But you don't need it these days, because you don't hit any insects. Either they've devised a method of swerving out the way of cars, they've become really smart, you know, like foxes, or there's a huge problem that we are storing up for ourselves, shooting ourselves in the foot by spraying all these insecticides in order to increase the amount that we get from our crops in the short term, and in the long term we won't have anything to eat. How stupid are we? This says, it's known that many insects can withstand high levels of radiation, levels that would kill a human. So I would imagine that insects would be okay if they wanted to use a mobile phone. You mean the insects or us? Nothing to worry about, says that messenger. And that message was probably sent in on a mobile phone, so there's another one gone, and another one gone, and another one bites the dust. Hey, hey, hey.
Rock and roll!
I witnessed a remarkable event in my garden. It was almost something. It was like something out of a. Well, it was a bit like something out of a horror show. by which I mean a nature documentary. Because that's the thing about nature documentaries, they don't often show nature doing what it does. Mostly, nature is ripping other bits of nature apart. And that exact thing happened in my garden. Well, of course, it happens all the time. It's just that you don't notice it. It happens on a very small level. Insects are, massacring other insects in vast numbers, I would imagine. And birds are ripping worms out of the ground and biting them in half and then swallowing them whole. What do you call them? Falcon? How big is a falcon? A kestrel? Anyway, it was a thing that looked like a small eagle. It was fearsome. It was grappling with a pigeon. I've never seen this, and I've never seen a bird of prey. I've seen bats. I suppose they're preying on insects. But I've never seen an actual real-life claw and, like a talon and a beak attack in this country, other than on television. It was, it was alarming. And this pigeon was flapping away on the ground in my back garden, and then suddenly the trees were full of other birds, squawking and screaming, and as though they wanted dinner too. And there were ravens and the black and white ones. What are they called? Magpies. Just screaming the place down. Suddenly the trees, it was like something out of an Alfred Hitchcock film. Suddenly the trees were full of birds, all staring down onto this falcon, I suppose. How big is a falcon? Am I overestimating how big this thing was? It was about that big. About that big. Looked pretty big to me, particularly through binoculars. And this poor pigeon, not that I care one way or the other about pigeons. I mean, they're vile things like rats with wings. Woody Allen was right about that. And little else. I like the early funny films, like the Aliens. And it was flapping away, trying to, make good its escape. But this fearsome bald eagle that had landed in the back of my garden, the size of a small car, it wasn't having it, and it would just eventually the pigeon stopped trying, and it just thought, oh, forget this, I'll come back as something else in another life. And for about half an hour this bird was just on top of it, just ripping bits out of it. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And the feathers that a relatively small bird has got on it, it was just extraordinary. And the skill with which this enormous prehistoric pterodactyl was dispatching it was just it was a sight to behold. Because it defeathered it first. Well, you got to get through the feathers to get to the good bit, right? And it would just pull them out and throw them to one side, and it would pull another one out and throw it to one side, and eventually there was my garden was like a crime scene. Feathers were everywhere, and it spent about 30 minutes just ripping the bits out of this this pigeon. And some of the bits were quite long and stringy. It didn't seem to like those very much. It sort of, I would imagine that those were its innards, and maybe it didn't have a taste for innards. It just liked the steak. It liked, I'll have a bit of leg and some breast, please. And having finished it off, or finished what it wanted to eat from it, it then just hopped away. Casually. And I went down and looked at the scene afterwards, expecting there to be, an horrific sight to greet me. And there wasn't anything there. It was just feathers. Admittedly, it was the next day, because I thought, I don't want to see it right now, because I'm about to eat, and I am of a nervous disposition. So I'll wait until tomorrow, and then I'll go and have a quick peek, see what it's like, see what I have to deal with. I have to pick it up with tongs, or get the barbecue tongs out and pick it up and put it in a bag, leave it for the recycling, in the dead bird box. And so I waited, hoping that, ants would come in and ravage it, and other birds would, take what was left. But there wasn't anything left. This thing had eaten the whole pigeon. Now, either pigeons are all fluffed up because of their feathers, and there's a lot less of them than greets the eye, or a pterodactyl has an enormous appetite. One of the two. I'm amazed it could fly away. I would have needed a nap. Sharon says, there's a sale going on in my bedroom right now. Clothes are 100% off. I still prefer the one about the dancing. Janella says, don't you think that as cars are more aerodynamic these days, the insects get swerved around the cars? In the old days, cars were built square with flat windscreens. Splat. No, I don't think that, Janella. I mean, buses. Buses have got the aerodynamic properties of a brick, and they're not covered in insects. Same with lorries. So you want to think before you speak next time, Janella. No, that's got nothing to do with it. It's just that there aren't any insects anymore. Human beings have made a big mistake, huge. What will we eat when all the plants are no more? We'll have to go for the other white meat. Who knows what might happen between now and 10 o'clock this evening? My mind is fried just thinking about it. But whatever it is, we'll chew it up and we'll spit it out then. How does that sound?